It's International Tea Day on May 21st, and an independent poll conducted by the Tea Advisory Panel has found that 8 out of 10 of us say that tea improves our mood, 70% of us use tea to energise us in the morning, and 25% of us say that tea improves our brain function. So to tell us more about International Tea Day, the many benefits of tea and how we can celebrate it as well, is Dr Carrie Ruxton. Dr Carrie is an award-winning writer and dietitian, and we are delighted to have her on the Chrissy B Show. Welcome to the show, Carrie.
Thank you very much for having me.
It's a real pleasure. Now, I'm absolutely fascinated with why we as a nation drink so much tea. What is going on there?
Yeah, we definitely are the top nation for tea. And I think it's because we've taken tea to our heart. I mean, while as a dietitian, I can always list all the fantastic reasons to drink tea from a health perspective. The Tea Advisory Panel did this poll of 1,000 Brits, and the findings were very revealing. It was basically just about emotion. So half of people were saying tea gets me going in the morning. And then I had about a third of people saying it helps to keep me calm. And then other people were saying, if I'm having a stressful day, my go-to drink is a cup of tea. They were also using tea when they were sitting down with a friend or a family member. So it was almost like taking time out of your day. So it's really interesting to see food used in that kind of more behavioural way, rather than I'm eating this because it's good for my heart, my weight loss, whatever. So it's lovely to see it used in that much more emotional way.
That's so important, especially right now. And that might be a great place to start in terms of International Tea Day. So tell us a little bit more about International Tea Day and why it's on the 21st of May.
Yeah, so International Tea Day is actually a United Nations initiative, and the whole purpose of it initially was to say, let's celebrate the workers who pick the tea and prepare the tea for us. So if you think about the UK, tea production is miles and miles away. It's in places like Kenya, China, India, Sri Lanka, and there are people who are creating. I mean, when you see pictures of it, there's these beautiful hills and mountains covered in tea plants, and these very colourful ladies normally with their baskets on their back, and they're the experts. They can pick the exact leaves that they need, which are going to give us the best quality, and then it kind of comes back to the production area, and it either gets put out in the sun or steamed or fermented or rolled, depending on which type of tea it is. And then eventually we get it in our tea bag or packet of loose tea at home. So it's really all about celebrating the workers. And the reason it's on that date is because that is the peak tea picking season for the best quality tea. But it does happen over a longer period of time as well.
Absolutely fascinating. You're taking me back to when I went to Cameron Highlands in Malaysia, where they have a tea plantation there, and they give you the structure of how the tea is picked and dried and sent out, and it's absolutely fascinating. Now, it's so funny you mentioned the emotional benefits, because that's also something I remember, because being in Malaysia, the more common drink there is actually coffee. And when we went to the tea plantation, we really just wanted a cup of tea, and it was absolutely wonderful. So as well as the emotional benefits, what are the other health benefits involved in tea?
There's been phenomenal amount of research on tea, literally thousands and thousands and thousands of papers. I've been working with tea since about 2007 when I first wrote a review about it. So I'm always keeping up to date with the science. But interestingly, the science shows that there are benefits right across the age spectrum. So if you think about children, and I would say probably from the age of 4, because there is some caffeine in tea, and we have to look at the recommendations for caffeine. So I wouldn't necessarily give tea to a baby. In Scotland, funnily enough, we got tea as toddlers in one of those little cups with the lids on them. And milky tea, sometimes with sugar, I'm sorry to say, but that was the 1960s then. But, you know, you can have from the age of 4, offer your child 1 to 2 cups of tea a day. And it is really good for the teeth, because tea is a natural source of fluoride, which the tea plant picks up from the soil, and it's delivering some fluoride to your child. And think how much healthier that is as a drink compared with some of the sugary diluting juices or fizzy drinks that we're offering our children. So tea is definitely something good for the teeth. Then you move on to the teenage years where you've got kids that are trying to study, they're trying to focus and concentrate. And here there's two components in tea that can help. So we do have the caffeine, and you're only getting about 40 milligrams per cup, where that's about half as much as you would get in a coffee, an instant coffee, and actually much less than you would get in a double espresso or a filter coffee. So you've got a small amount of caffeine, but married to that is a special amino acid that's only found in tea called L-theanine, which you'll probably know about from your psychology studies. And they've done studies in the brain and showing that L-theanine actually changes the way that our brain works and helps us to focus and avoid things like mind wandering. So that's really good for a teenager sitting at their desk trying to get their work done. Then we move up into adulthood, so sort of my age range. And here we're very interested in heart health. Tea is fantastic for vascular function. It helps to control the functioning of your blood vessels, and it's linked with a reduction in heart disease and stroke. And then even as you get a bit older, in, for example, menopausal women who do suffer a bit of weight gain, tea is great for that, particularly green tea, because it slightly increases fat oxidation. So you're burning off more calories. I mean, it's not a substitute for having a healthy diet. So you can't go and eat sweets and then have a cup of tea, but it is part of the package of trying to get your weight under control. And then to the furthest edge of the age range, elderly people who are interested in maintaining cognitive function. And here there's evidence that tea protects them from cognitive decline, and it's because of the tea polyphenols that actually help to reduce inflammation in the brain. They're antioxidants, and they are contributing towards your cognitive health. So right across the age spectrum.
That's phenomenal, really. And what's so lovely about this is that tea is so easily accessible.
But yeah, and not expensive.
Absolutely. I have to admit, though, I go into a tea shop, I see the whole range of teas, and I panic. I go in wanting to try something new, but because I'm so used to either green tea or just your bog standard brew, which I love, and it's great, I don't know what to pick. So what would you advise a complete beginner like myself in terms of choosing something to try?
Yeah, well, you're not alone, because our tea advisory panel study showed that 86% of people just like normal black tea. That's their kind of go-to drink, and about 8 in 10 of them add milk. And unfortunately, about 40% add sugar still, which I'm amazed about, with all this sugar reduction. But it is good to try some new tea. So ones that you might like to try is, I really like an Assam or English breakfast in the morning, because it's a lovely strong hit of tea, and it's great with milk. But you might also want to try in the afternoon something like an Earl Grey or a Lady Grey tea, which has got, well, Earl Grey's got the bergamot, so it's a slight orangey flavour, but it's a very refreshing tea for the afternoon, and it can either go with or without milk. And then something interesting for the evening, you might want to try rooibos tea, which is not from the same plant as black and green tea, and it mainly comes from places like South Africa, but it's caffeine free. And so you can enjoy a cup of tea in the evening if you're a little bit sensitive to caffeine, but still you can add milk to it as well, or have it without milk, maybe with lemon. But that's a very nice, refreshing tea, and you don't get the caffeine.
A lot of things to choose from there. I'm really quite excited. And listening to you, you're talking about the hint of orange or a floral or a lemon. And are there certain foods in that case that would complement certain teas better than others?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, in some countries like South Korea, for example, when you go out for a restaurant meal, you wouldn't have a beer or wine with your meal. You would have tea, and then you might have your beer later on at the bar. So they very much pair tea drinking with food. And it's the same with Japan. I was lucky enough to go to Japan a couple of years ago, and I found that the green tea was really amazing. Because it was almost cloudy. It had so many of the green components in it, really delicious tea. So I would definitely say that you could have a green tea with something like a stir fry or fish, more kind of lighter food. And then you might want to have your favourite black tea with something like an English breakfast, or with a slice of fruit cake in the afternoon. So black tea goes very well with that. An interesting pairing actually is lapsang souchong, which is a smoky tasting tea, and that goes very well with cheese. So if you're having cheese and biscuits, rather than having coffee with it, you might want to try a lapsang souchong, and you don't add milk to that. And then another one is oolong tea. And oolong tea, again, you wouldn't add milk, but that goes very well with roasted meat and even with spicy ribs.
That's so much to think about. And also that makes my whole palate, I think, much more interesting. It's really broadened not only what I drink, but actually thinking about what I eat and how to enhance the flavors. This is really wonderful. Now, when I talk to my clients, I often say to them, let's keep a little sachet of tea in your wellbeing pack. And a wellbeing pack is, it's something to draw from. You know, at those times of crisis when it's just not working out, you need to stop. You might have something like a stress ball in there. You might have a list of positive affirmations, but also have that little sachet of tea that you can go to. So with that, how will you be drinking your tea on International Tea Day?
Well, I just love a strong cup of tea, and I like a big cup of tea as well. So I have my own mug at home, which is probably about half a litre, because one of the things we forget about tea is it's hydrating. So I've been for a 10-mile run this morning, and I came back, had a glass of water, and I sat down to something that was about almost a pint of tea in a big, big mug. So I love a lovely strong cup of something like English breakfast or Assam, and I do put quite a lot of milk in it, but I'm actually using oat milk at the moment, which goes very well with tea. So I'm having my Assam with my oat milk, and I will sit down and enjoy that.
It's absolutely fascinating. And also, you are so vibrant, so energetic. It's clearly working for you. And
Definitely.
You're right about sort of thinking that tea is so hydrating, because sometimes when you have that cup of tea, it really does, I can feel it in my brain. Even if I haven't had enough water, I can feel it working. So when it comes to benefits or finding out any more about tea and learning more about the process, perhaps, where can we go for more information?
Yeah, so there's a lovely website, just simply tea.co.uk. And that has got the history of tea. It's got loads of information about tea picking and the process of creating your favourite cup of tea. It's even got a funny little counter about how many cups a day we're drinking in the UK, which I just love. When I put the kettle on, I know that I'm not alone, because there are people all over the country drinking tea. And there is a little bit about the health benefits. I mean, we're from the Tea Advisory Panel. You can always look that up and see some of the other resources that we've produced. But I think the lovely thing about tea is you can share it across the generations. It tastes lovely, it's comforting, but it's also doing you good in terms of your health.
Thank you so much, and have a wonderful cup of tea in the afternoon later on today.
I will.